Yep, I see you. Hey! Yogi tea. I'm on my second cup of yogi tea for the day, but that's all good. I'm hoping you are all well. The minion sends his regards as well. It is Bridget here from Bridget's Healthy Kitchen. Very cool, very exciting. I know I always say that, but I get excited by everything. This is particularly exciting, this class. I know that when I published it last night, that we were going to do a class on healthy cupcakes. There was a pretty immediate and instant and very excited reaction to this class. So here it is for you guys today. I'm going to do something that I didn't do in the last couple of classes because I haven't been seeing my comments, which has been upsetting me. So I'm going to push a button on my phone and hopefully, no, that's not it. Hopefully I get to see comments. So far, no, I'm not seeing any comments. Boo! Everyone's saying hi. Hi guys, I know you're there. I can see a count of how many people are watching, but once again, don't know what's going on with Facebook. They're not letting me see your comments, but Mahe is here. If you have any questions as we're going throughout this healthy cupcake cooking class, I know, healthy cupcakes, you're like, hang on, those two words don't work. Healthy cupcake, how does that work? If you've got any questions as we're going throughout this class, please feel free to ask because Mahe is here to answer all your questions, or he's going to ask me and then I can answer all your questions. I can hear something bubbling behind me. Just going to take that off. So here we go. Healthy cupcake cooking class. Very exciting for me, very exciting for you. Let's get into it. It is so simple to do, by the way. It literally is. I've broken it down into two separate parts. That's all we got to do. Then we're going to bake it. Yes, let's go. Let's go. Come on down to my bench. Whoops, come on down to my bench. I have one more little sip of tea before we get going. It is so good. You know how I do this, guys, is I make my yogi tea, I brew my pot, and then I keep it warm in my teapot with my tea cozy or my tea beanie. That's how I do it. It's wonderful. But anyway, I digress. Let's get into the recipe. Very simple to do. I have my chopping board sitting here. So my chopping board, yes I do, but I also have my scales sitting on my chopping board. By the way, I've already preheated my oven and it's sitting on 170 degrees Celsius, which is 340 degrees Fahrenheit. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to measure out our wet ingredients. So we're going to do a bowl of wet, a bowl of dry, and then we're just going to combine everything together. So when it comes to my wet ingredients, as you can see here, go to 0, thank you. As you can see here, I've already got some liquid in it. This is a non-dairy milk. I'm using unsweetened almond milk, but you can use any non-dairy milk that you like. I'm using almond, and by the way, this recipe is a base, and I've got 100 mils, which is 3.5 fluid ounces of unsweetened, make sure it's unsweetened, almond milk or whatever non-dairy milk you want to put in there. We're also going to add in 2 eggs, just crack them straight in, and I'm using large eggs, and I always use my eggs at room temperature, by the way. They work so much better, well, baking works so much better when your eggs are at room temperature. So 2 eggs go in there. As well as that, and that was what was bubbling behind me on my stove, I'm going to add some melted coconut oil to that, and I'm going to be adding in 2 tablespoons of melted coconut oil. Goes in there. And then taking up a whisk is the best way to attack this. Taking up a whisk, bring everything together. And the last bit of, well, there's 2 more liquids we're going to add, but the main last liquid, that's not going to work, is we're going to be adding in some apple cider vinegar. So I'm going to be adding in a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar, goes in there as well, and a tablespoon of pure vanilla extract goes in there too, because the cupcakes that we're making, as I said, they're a base cupcake, and these are a vanilla cupcake. The recipe that I give you, you can then go ahead and design your different flavors depending on what you want. But this is the base. This is the base, the vanilla base cupcake. And once you've learned how to do the vanilla base cupcake, it really is up to you what you want to do from there on in. So that's all the wet liquid done. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to do the dry liquid. So I'm going to change my scales over to grams. And the dry liquid, once again, it's up to you guys how you attack this. So I'm going to be using almond flour because, of course, these are gluten-free, sugar-free, and you know they are dairy-free as well. Of course they are, but I'm using almond flour. It's up to you what type of flour you choose to use, because I know some of you can't stomach almond flour, so I'll leave that up to you as well. And the almond flour we're going to be adding in here is 150 grams of almond flour. And by the way, this quantity that I'm making makes 8 cupcakes. And it is just, they're so wonderful. We made them last night and we ate them all last night because I just give you a warning, they are absolutely moorish. They are fantastic. So that's our first dry that goes in there. Give that a little bit of a clean down. I'm going to use that spoon again. And then the next dry ingredient that goes into it is our sweetener. So I'm using erythritol sweetener here, which you can purchase in the supermarkets. Now this sweetener, by the way, has 0 carbs. So if you're on a low carb diet, oh my goodness. It also will not spike your blood sugar. So it's got 0 glycemic index. Gluten-free, of course, gluten-free. And you can use it as a sugar replacement. So with the erythritol, like I said, I bought this at the supermarket. It's pretty expensive, so you don't want to have to add too much. I'm adding in 50 grams of the sugar substitute. And there is only, I think, something crazy, like 1 calorie, if you are calorie counting, not that I do, but there's like 1 calorie per serve of that sugar. So it's really low calorie, and you know, it adds that bit of sweetness, which is what we want. And it's completely natural too, by the way, completely natural. So that's in there. We're also going to turn these cupcakes into prebiotic cupcakes, because that's how we do things. It's going to add a little bit more sweetness too, because cupcakes do have to have a certain amount of sweetness, as we know. And for that, I'm going to be adding in my inulin, pure as inulin. And you know how much I love this stuff. I gotta say, this pure as inulin, it smells like fairy floss. Someone said this to me a couple of days ago. They said that it's what it reminds them of. And now every time I open up my jar of pure as inulin, all I smell is fairy floss or candy floss or fairy floss. So we're gonna be putting 40 grams of inulin goes in there. Just like that. Yes, wonderful. Our other dry ingredients is we need to think about adding a bit of a raising agent. I'm going to be adding some baking powder. And our baking powder is 1 teaspoon of baking powder goes in there. We're also going to be adding in some bicarb soda or baking soda. And we're adding in half a teaspoon of baking soda. And then to help everything to bind together, which is really important, is we need to add some of our xanthan gum in there as well. And with the xanthan gum, I'm going in and I'm doing half a teaspoon of xanthan gum goes in there. Of course, we can buy xanthan gum from the supermarket as well. Very common now, found in the health food aisle. We need the xanthan gum to bind our gluten-free products together. Because remember, this is gluten-free. So of course, it needs something to help it to bind together. So a pinch of salt, just a little pinch of salt. That's just going to help the flavors to be detected on our palate. And then all we've got to do, get rid of that scales now, is give it a bit of a mix. Nothing too crazy. You don't need any type of food processor or anything like this for this recipe. You can do everything by hand. Make a little well in the middle, because then we're going to incorporate our wet ingredients, go in there, and then just give it a bit of a stir. Now the consistency that you're looking for when it comes to your cupcakes is a very wet mixture. Very, very wet. Something along those lines. All you're doing is mixing it till it's combined, but you can see that's a very loose and very wet mixture, which is absolutely perfect. That is what you are looking for, is that type of consistency. Yes, I have a question.
What's the difference between almond flour and almond meal?
The question is, what is the difference between almond flour and almond meal? There is definitely some confusion, so it's a great question. So almond flour tends to be this color. So it's blonde in color, yeah? And it's not a fine powder. It still is quite grainy. So that's what you're looking for. This is kind of almond flour. Now almond meal, on the other hand, tends to have specks through it. So it's got a few brown specks through it. And the brown specks are the skin of the almond. So an almond meal has got a slightly different colour. It's going to have the same result. Don't think there's any difference between the almond meal and the almond flour. In fact, the one with the brown specks in it is actually healthier for you because it's still got its skin attached, and a lot of the goodness just sits right underneath the skin there. So that's the main difference. But the confusion lies in some brands, they label it differently. So you can use almond flour, the blonde version, which basically is just ground up almonds without skin, or you can use almond meal, which has the little brown specks through it, which means it's got the skin attached. Not much difference, definitely no difference in flavour. In fact, as I was saying, the almond meal with the specks tends to be a bit better for you, but it depends what you can get, and I find it really difficult to get almond meal here in Australia, so I go with almond flour. Yes, we've got another question.
Robin asked, could you use monk fruit sweetener?
Could you use monk fruit sweetener? Yes, anything that has the erythritol, which is basically what that monk fruit sweetener is, Robin. So yes, you can use the monk fruit sweetener, which is I think it's the La Canto brand. But what you're looking for is check the label and make sure that your whatever sugar substitute you're using has the erythritol in there. That's what you're looking for. So I've got my cupcake holder. I have my cases in here. I always double up on my cupcake cases. Always double up, especially because we've got some coconut oil in here. So it is a little bit of a, I wouldn't say an oilier, but you will notice if you've only got one cupcake case in there, it might seep through. So I always double up with my cupcakes. Remember, we're making 8 here. And what you want to do is just obviously start to put it into your cupcake cases. And the idea is, I always like to use something along these lines. The idea is that you want to fill up the cases 3/4 of the way up the side. So for me, it's around about one of these ladles and a bit is how I kind of do it. But you can do it with a tablespoon. You don't have to be all fancy with a ladle. But just remember, what you're doing when you're filling up your cupcake cases is you're filling up 3/4 of the cupcake case. Now, one of the things you have to bear in mind when it comes to these cupcakes, because there's no gluten, we're not going to get a massive rise out of them. So they will rise a little bit, but they will definitely not be all puffy on the top. They will be quite flat on the top. So it's not that you've done anything wrong. Just remember, we don't have gluten, and it's those gluten strands that are able to trap the air as it bakes and give it the rise. So don't worry if yours don't have that. Not a problem at all. Let me just scrape down that. So if you want to make smaller ones, which you absolutely can, you might find that you get 9, 10, 11 cupcakes. But for this purpose, I get 8 every time of cupcakes, which is great because there's 4 of us in the house right now because it means we get 2 each. And there's no fighting. And trust me, there has been fighting. There has been fighting. Oh, look, because I said I always get 8, I only got 7. Well, there you go. I wasn't very exact with my measuring. But you can get 7, 8, or 9, depending on how full you make them. So once all the mixture is in, scrape down. You know, you don't want to waste anything. That's when my favourite implement comes out. The one the kids still to this day can't stand, because it means that I get to scrape everything and they can't lick the bowl. So get all the bits and pieces out of there. And then this then goes over to the oven. I have my rack set right in the middle, which is ideal for baking, so I've got hot air circulating all around it. And you want to pop that in that hot oven. Remember, I don't need that one, save those for another time. 170 degrees Celsius, which is 340 degrees Fahrenheit, and you want to leave that in between 20 to 22 minutes. Yeah, that is the cook time. So I'm going to go and pop them in right now into my oven. I'm going to set my timer. I know you can't see me doing it, but I don't want to burn them. 22 minutes or 20 to 22 minutes is ideal. But of course, here is one that I prepared earlier. So after 22 minutes, you will get that. Yay! Isn't it gorgeous? Isn't it stunning? Now the way to check whether your your cupcakes are ready, The best way to do it is just to lightly put your finger on top. And what you want to happen when they're still hot in the oven is this cupcake will spring right back at you straight away. Another way you can test it is take a little toothpick, pop it in there, pull the toothpick out, and it should come out fairly clean. You can have a few little light crumbs on it, but not dough. You don't want dough. So depending on your oven, you may find that you need to cook them a little bit longer if you've got a bit of dough, or they don't spring back at you, or your oven is running quite hot. So definitely start looking at them at around about the 15-minute mark. Keep an eye on them. Do the little finger test to see if it springs back. Test it with the skewer. Now I'll show you why I do the double case. It's because it hasn't leaked through, but it kind of gets a little, do you know what I mean? It just gets a little bit, it's not as pretty. So I always double case, just like that. So ideally, allow them to cool. Okay, come up here. This is important, only because we did this last time. Allow them to cool on your wire rack before you eat them, because they're going to be easier to peel from the case. Otherwise, you're going to leave lots of cupcake on the case. That is the ideal scenario. In an ideal world, you're not going, those smell good, because they do really smell amazing as they're cooking, like they're really incredible. So you might be tempted to eat them straight from the oven hot. And I don't blame you. Like I said, we did this, but they're just a little bit harder to peel off the case. When they're cool, which these are, I baked these about an hour ago, you can see that they just come straight off like that. And look how moist it is. Now, what you're looking for consistency-wise with these cupcakes is you want a tender crumb. That is literally the sign of a most gorgeous cupcake, when it's tender in your mouth. So it's really short and you get a lovely, delicate softness to it. So that's a base. You guys then do what you want to it. Now, can I show you what I did to it? Just wait. I'll show you what I did to it. All right, are you ready? Ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. So I created, our Coco reckons they look like the sorting hat from Harry Potter. I created here, come down. I created some raspberry curd meringue cupcakes. Yes, I did. I know it's really naughty, but why wouldn't you want to do that? There is nothing, this is amazing. Like, this could go into, this could be a lunch or a snack, and it's so easy, right? Just to make them like that. If you've got a bit of time and maybe you want to take something for an afternoon or morning tea, or maybe it's a bake sale or whatever it is, then you can also think about doing something like this. So I have obviously a meringue on top. Now, if you want I'm going to share the recipe for these raspberry curd meringue cupcakes tomorrow. I will be sharing the recipe, so you'll get the cupcake recipe plus the meringue topping, which of course is healthy, and the raspberry curd, which is inside. I'll share that with you guys tomorrow. But there's nothing stopping you from doing something like this. So let's cut one open. Which one should I cut open? I cut open this one. It's got heaps of meringue on it. Let's cut one open so I can show you what is inside. I want to get as close as possible. So once again, it's like I said, you've got to wait that little bit just so you're able to peel. And did you know that is actually a little plate? Did you know that? That your cupcake case is actually doubles as a little plate. Oh, it's so gorgeous. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. All right, so let's cut. Oh, goodness me. Are you ready? I'm going to come closer so you can see. Right. Oh, fingers are going to get very sticky. Can you see what's inside? Look. It's kind of falling apart, but let me take that away. Oh. There you go. It's got a raspberry curd in there. Oh, everything is so soft. You just kind of want to lick your fingers, right? It is amazing. I am super excited to be sharing this recipe with you guys tomorrow. It is it's definitely a good one. It's a good one. Oh god. Yum. Is that all I can say? So here you go. A little bit. Let me just get into. I've got to try it, right? You can't not try it. This is probably not one for fingers, even though my fingers are loving it. Probably not one for fingers. I'm still going with the fingers. Let me get a spoon. Okay, I'm going to go into the curd because that's what can you see that curd there? Can you see that? Oh, it's divine. It is so good. Lovely and tangy from that wonderful curd, and then that beautiful fluffy lightness, like marshmallow from the meringue, and of course that tender light cupcake. Well, that's lunch. So guys, thank you for joining me. Sorry for being a bit of a piggy. I could not help myself. That is just absolutely stunning. From this to this, pretty delicious. All right guys, I will share that recipe with you tomorrow, but in the meantime, feel free to make the cupcakes, because then tomorrow all you gotta do is make the curd and top it with the meringue and you're good to go. Okay guys, thank you for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. Whatever you are doing, do not forget that, let me go back down here, that goes really well with that yogi tea too, by the way. Love you guys, and we will see you soon. Thank you for joining me again. Take care everyone, bye.